But, yeah, I mean, the main thing of course is that you spot it and others are spotting it well. What's the main problems you see with the bill?
Well, the last incarnation of the bill had a lot of stuff in that was fine, and one big problem, which was that it protected the right of the private sector to participate in the NHS. And following an intervention from me, in which I went through some reasons why this was not a good idea, that it potentially could lock the entire NHS into privatisation, and there really wasn't any grounds for it. There wasn't anything at all, any situation that could justify that. So it seemed a very odd thing that it had crept in there in the first place, really. And I never got to the bottom of how that happened. But following that explanation at the meeting, it did get removed, and then some other things got pulled in to replace it in terms of locking the NHS permanently into the privatisation.
Different doors?
Different things were pulled in, and they were pulled in from the effort bill, which people have been misled to think is some sort of protection for the NHS. I like to refer to the effort bill as the United Health Monopoly Bill, because the very big change it makes is to create a way for it to be legal for a single private company to take over the whole of NHS commissioning from underneath. So that will be the US insurance company, which already has taken control of the NHS and has been part of our policy process for quite some years. But also in the effort bill there was a bunch of other privatisers' wishes, and several of those have been imported. There's quite a few things which are of concern, but the ones which are the most obviously problematic are the protection of charges within the NHS. There is an explicit protection of the ability to charge money for services, and that means that exemption from trade law, exemption under TTIP, would potentially become impossible, because trade and competition law have exemptions for public services, but in order that they are not seen to be inhumane or unreasonable. But those exemptions are incredibly tightly worded, and basically public services which are entirely nationalised qualify for exemption, and anything which is less than entirely nationalised does not qualify. Therefore, having charging in the NHS is a very big problem. Also a concern on that front is that all of the legal changes appear to be pinned to pulling back the situation to 2006, sort of the mid-New Labour's part of the privatisation. I wonder whether that is related to the EU procurement laws, because the government is required to put a whole load of EU legislation into our national law, and generally it does that without any fanfare or drawing attention to it. So they put in the EU procurement laws in 2006, and I'm wondering whether it's due to some competition law tie that it's not been taken back to the position it needed to be, which is really to take it back pre-privatisation. There is a plan by one Arthur Selden called After the NHS that was put out in 1968, and that's the foundation of the Thatcher privatisation plan, which was worked up by privatisation specialists, MPs Letwin and Redwood in the 1980s. So they hired themselves a team of compliant politicians to put that through, and so the major government had a go at it, started the PFI process off. Labour government went full in on the hospital PFIs, and then brought in various bits of privatising legislation, including a couple of acts in 2006. The foundation trusts come from an act in 2003. So this would roll back most of the system to 2006, but leaving the Health Act 2009 in place, which contains the new privatisation route for hospitals. That was an innovation created by the last Labour jurisdiction on behalf of the city, which makes it possible for the first time to find a way to get a hospital out of the public sector and into the private sector by making it go bust. And of course the PFIs have been instrumental in that. And this bill version also contains a part of that. The wish list for the PFI lenders is to get the PFIs away from the hospitals where we might be able to sue for the frauds that were involved in every one of those PFIs. Every one of the financial models breaks the rules and really is horribly skewed. When you start to pull them apart, it's clear that they are could not be described as honest. So in theory somebody ought to be paying for that, and we ought to be getting some compensation for that. So the PFI industry, i.e. the City of London, is dead keen to to get those PFIs out of the hospitals and turn them into something where they'll definitely get their money back. So the suggestion that's been put in this bill is the thing that's been pushed at NHS Defenders a lot over the last few months by the city's representatives on the kind of pseudo-left, if you like, and that is to centralise the PFI debts in the Treasury, at which point it will become that they're secured on our labours and we will have to pay those. So this is really not a good move. It is hard to see how this can have happened apart from by a piece of last-minute trickery. I think people have been encouraged to believe that the effort bill was somehow clumsy and incompetent, but an effort in the right direction, and it isn't. Unfortunately, it's just full of really nasty technical legal tricks.
I tried reading it, and by about page whatever it was, I really had a hard time following what was going on. So.
Well, it's deliberately obscure, apart from anything else. But yes, unfortunately this all looks lovely, but it's not good for the NHS in its current state, and we need to fight it. It is good that all of this publicity has been got for the effort, I guess, because we can use that. There is some awareness raised of it as a good thing, and then we need to draw people's attention to why it isn't a good thing, and also, honestly, to the process of how it got this way. Because if there's one thing I'm really sure of, it's that Professor Alison Pollock is solidly on the side of the NHS. She has presumably been trusting in the wrong people. This morning we've had some of our better MPs out here, people who genuinely seem to have some sort of ethical commitment and a respectable way of doing things. And it's really a pity that they've been pulled in because they're not technical legal specialists. They're trusting other people's words. And in the end, what you can see is that wording comes in straight from the city, and that is not a good thing for the NHS.
So if I was about to meet Alison on Monday, which I may do in Cambridge, what's the first question I should ask her or help her with?
Why is the PFI wish list in there? And also, why is this taken back to 2006? What reasons have been given to her? Now, I have been attempting to get a third party to ask this question, because I didn't want to wade right into the middle of it. And I've ended up trying. I called her last night. She was going to call me back and then didn't. And one thing and another, it's been problematic. I've been trying to deal with the matter diplomatically. But I think the key to it really is why 2006? Because it doesn't make any sense rationally, but you can see there's the EU connection, so that's a thing that the Labour Party would like not to admit to. Yeah. And no government, in fact, will ever admit that they've been putting through this EU law into our law without telling us, what the implications are at all. Yeah. They just do it slavishly because they don't want us to know that they have to do those things. So there's that. And then the other possibility is that it looks like maybe they're getting rid of the coalition's deals so that they can restore the situation as it was in 2006, part-way through their cashing up of the NHS. But, that 2006 date rather does suggest who might be behind this, I have to say.
That's my question on Monday then.
So if you could ask, if you could find out who it is that advised her that this was a good idea, I think the secret is probably in there. She's a nice lady.
And I think I'm with you. I think she genuinely wants to save the NHS.
She has worked so hard, We put our hopes in things and we get our friendships together, and people, unfortunately, especially on the left, seem to be very bad at detecting when people are lying to them and tricking them. They are very good-hearted, lovely people, and unfortunately that seems to be their undoing. I think possibly a little bit more suspicion among all of us might have you at this point, because it does seem to be all too easy to colonise leaderships to lead us astray. It's great when the grassroots starts talking to the grassroots, ordinary people starting talking to each other, because that way, the true messages can get through and we don't get dragged aside all the time by well-funded commercial interests with great PR campaigns and, sophisticated methods of misrepresentation in the key quarters at the key times.
Yeah. I think we've all become, I know we've become very suspicious of anything that comes our way now. We have to ask questions around it before we actually answer anything. It's crazy. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Brilliant. And I'll ask Alison.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's great.